everyone, Michelle Seidling here with another episode of Food Experience Unplugged. What brings you joy? Today we'll explore the role of joy in building healthy habits. Here to help us do that is Lisa Dimino White, a coach, speaker, and author of the book Bursting with Happiness: How Bursts of Joy Can Change Your Life and the Lives of Everyone Around You. This podcast is available on multiple platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and others, as well as our website at foodexperienceunplugged.com. Please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform for new content as it becomes available. Please also check out our website at foodexperienceunplugged.com for some free resources as you begin your health journey. Lisa Dimino White, welcome to Food Experience Unplugged.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It's wonderful to be here.
Oh, it's so wonderful to have you here and bringing joy to our podcast today. Fantastic.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Wonderful. Now, to start out with, will you take a moment to introduce yourself and what brought you to this point in your life and in your career?
Absolutely. So, born and raised out east, Newport News, Virginia. Moved out to Colorado about 16 years ago. Have a wonderful family. My husband, Jonathan, my two kids, David and Catherine. David just turned 12 and Catherine's 8. I have experience in marketing and communications management over 20 years. And, I loved it. I love what I do. I love working for associations, nonprofits, companies. But about a year ago, I had one of those moments where it's like, what really fires me up? What gets me excited? What do I love about my job and connecting with others? And it really is all about joy. And it's all about reminding people of their awesomeness and encouraging people to just enjoy this ride of life that we're on. And so I made a pivot and started consulting. I actually do continue my marketing communications consulting work on the side, but most of my time is spent on my mission to inspire others to seek out joy for themselves, their communities, and all of humankind. That's, in a nutshell, what I feel I'm called to do. And I am having a blast, just an absolute blast, sharing my message and inspiring others to think a little bit differently on how to enjoy themselves a little bit more.
That is amazing. I love how dramatic of a shift that is, because you think, marketing and communications is exciting in itself as a career, but to really do that pivot over to joy, to the I think your website is the Joy Seeker, and
Correct.
to get
.com.
people
Yep.
seeking joy. So that is amazing. Now you mentioned, you really felt that was your calling. Was it really, how powerful was it to really, rock your world, so to speak, to get you to really shift over to that as a career?
It's one of those things where I kept noticing a pattern in communications with people, interactions. People, friends, colleagues, acquaintances, they all think that everybody else has it all figured out, because I have a very positive energy just in general. And some people are very turned off by that. I'll be honest with you. I've had some people say, "You make me nauseous." And I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not your cup of tea then, because I am who I am. But I've had so many people say, "How do you keep such a positive mindset? How are you so optimistic? You must have no problems, no challenges in life." And I just laugh out loud, because if only they knew. And it occurred to me that it's important they know, because all of us have challenges, we have struggles, but at the end of the day, that doesn't mean we can't be joyful too. So, a little bit of background. I, as a child, have always had anxieties, fears, just always scared that something bad was going to happen. That was just the way I was wired. And I got help for it when I was a kid, and it was very stable, and the situation was all fine until fast forward, when I got married 20 years ago. And then again, when COVID hit. These are times where our propensities of who we are come out. And I've learned how to manage, how to deal with those challenges and share those challenges with others, because once they hear that, it makes them think, wow, I had no idea that you were going through that, but yet you're still who you are and optimistic and positive. And that's the thing. Just because I have my challenges like everyone else doesn't mean I can't be joyful. And there's ways to navigate around those challenges we all have and still live a happy life. And that's actually something that I've developed into a model of sorts that I can share now or we can get into a little bit later. But it occurred to me that the more people knew about my struggles, the more empowered they can be to find joy despite what they're dealing with as well.
Wow, that is amazing. I really love, obviously positivity and joy go hand in hand,
Mhm.
just really focusing on, no matter what is happening in your life, you're still focused on that joy and kind of determined, if you will, to really prioritize it in your life instead of looking toward the negative situations.
Of course. I mean, we always go toward our focus. And I'm not saying to ignore the bad things. Yes, of course, things happen. We have to deal with them. But so much of life is about just not getting tied up in the things that don't really matter. Let's not, obsess over or stress about the things that, in the grand scheme of life, aren't that important. It just enjoy and focus on what we can do to bring those feelings of joy to the forefront each and every day in some capacity.
In addition to teaching about joy, you also released a new book recently called, it's Bursting with Happiness, I believe is the title.
Absolutely. Bursting with
Oh,
happiness. It's all about how bursts of joy, the more bursts of joy we can create in our lives, the happier lives we'll have. And it's as simple as that. The more bursts of joy we can incorporate into our lives, it's not only better for us, but better for everyone around us because the happier we are, the more joyful and happier others have who are around us. So it's like that ripple effect that we know about so well. It
mhm.
really is something that just continues on. And I just in the book share what gives me bursts of happiness. Just very simple things that remind me to feel that joy each and every day. And with the hope that it inspires my readers to do the same for them as well. Because it's not hard to feel bursts of joy. You just have to be very deliberate in your life to make sure you incorporate the things that give you that feeling of happiness.
Absolutely. That's great. So, kind of a lot of little tips and
Exactly.
tricks. Okay.
Exactly.
Wow, that is amazing. I love it. I love how you're spreading joy, spreading positivity. Now, let's take a step back for a moment, though. I mean, joy. It's a pretty common term, but what specifically do we mean when we say, "Hey, you have joy in your life," or some other use of the word?
I think the way I define it and the way I feel it in my heart is just feeling at peace, whether it's something that you are in the zone, when you find something you love and you enjoy doing it, you just get wrapped up into it and it gives you a sense of that losing time, when you look up and you realize you've been absorbed in something for so long, but that you're enjoying it. But it's also about radiating that positive energy all around us. It's about thinking from a sense of gratitude, of course, but also from a sense of not wasting our energy on the things that don't matter in the grand scheme of life. And I just feel like we all know what it is that creates those bursts of joy for us. That when you're in a funk or and you're in a bad mood, you know what it is that's going to make you feel a little bit lighter, if you will, in who you are and what your outlook is on the day for that moment. And so it's just a matter of whatever it is that brings you that sense of calm.
Okay, the calming effect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially now.
Yes,
Oh,
definitely. Oh, now how do you feel that joy how does it affect your goals in life or your different activities, what your choices?
I believe that we all have the opportunity to dream big. I mean, we absolutely have that gut feeling of what's meant for us and what we're capable of. And when we're coming to it from a place of gratitude, appreciation, finding the things that bring us those little bursts, I believe we're in a better mindset to think positively and go bigger and believe the fact that we have influence on the world. It's one of those things where people say, well, I'm only one person. What can I do? And this is something I talk about in my book. Often it's the little things that make such a difference in someone's life. I mean, I mentioned in the book that so I broke my wrist roller skating a year and a
Oh
half ago.
no.
It was very bad, very very bad, and my husband was out of town, and I couldn't wash my hair. I couldn't get my hands up to wash my hair because of my wrist. And I was losing my mind. I was so depressed. And I'm like, I got to figure this out. So I had passed a dry bar down the street for years and I'd never gone, but I went. And the little girl couldn't have been more than 17 or 18 years old. She's like, well, what are we going to do today? What style would you like? And I just start crying and I said, lady, do whatever. Just wash it, please. And after the look of horror came off of her face by me reacting that way, she could not have been sweeter. She was so kind and generous and gentle and said, don't worry, girl, I gotcha. You're going to look great. And her kindness made such a difference because it was a human connection. It's all about connecting. Some may argue, well, Lisa, she was just doing her job. And I push back and say, yes, she was, but she didn't have to do what she did. She elevated me on a personal level. She connected with me in a way that made me feel such joy. And it made me want to share that joy with other people as well. And it radiates. It's all about that human connection. As individuals, especially during challenging times, we have more of an influence and an impact on others than we think we do. And it just spreads and spreads and spreads. And that's, in my mind, how we continue to create a culture, an environment, a world that we're going to want our kids to be a part of. They're going to want to be a part of, that it's going to be focused more on connection than opposition, because it has to start somewhere. And it has to start with us believing that we're all connected and we all can make that difference.
I love that. I love just how, focusing on the lifting up of others. And, it's reciprocal, it sounds like anyway, as you lift up others, you yourself feel that sense of joy. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when we're in a positive mindset, I know for me, I am all about trying to help other people, trying to serve other people. About a year ago, I was in King Supers, which is my local grocery store here in the Denver area, and I saw an older lady struggling with one of those produce bags. She couldn't open it to put her broccoli in. And of course, you know me, ran right over and I said, let me give you a hand with that. And she was so grateful. And we had about, a minute of chit chat and talking about the weather. And when I left her, I felt so good that I had to calm myself down and said, Lisa, you didn't just give her a kidney for crying out loud. But it was a little gesture that took literally 90 seconds of my day, but it made me feel connected to another human. It let me help her. And it reminded me that, she's just this little dot in my day, but she's got bubbles of people in her sphere and dots that she's going to connect with as strangers throughout the day. And just think, if those dots can blow up into little bubbles that surround all of us, how impactful we can be. And if I hadn't been in a good mindset that day or forced myself to feel joyful as much as I could when I was grocery shopping, I may have just overlooked that opportunity to help another human.
Interesting. Now I love just how you just almost you didn't even think about it. You automatically, hey, needs help. You go help her.
Right to her.
Takes a minute, and that's it.
Right
So, and
to
you
her.
leave her in a better situation. And
Exactly.
absolutely,
And leave her feeling good about humankind and other people. And there are good people, and maybe she was having a rough moment or a rough day. And it just restores that little piece of humanity that I know we all have, but real life gets in the way. I mean, we're busy. We have to get done what we have to get done. So it was nice to be able to personally connect with another human for even a brief time to help them out and remind them that there is good in this world and we are all good inside.
absolutely. Now, on the flip side, why is it often a challenge to have joy? Why is
Mm,
that? Do you
so
think?
many reasons. I mean, I think part of it comes from that feeling of inferiority. We're all struggling and recognizing that it's okay to have struggles. That doesn't mean you can't be joyful. You can't wait for your life to be perfect in order to allow yourself to enter into some joyful mindset, because then we'll never get there. I mean, I know we've all said, if I could just fix X, everything would be great. Well, we all know that when you achieve X, you still have challenges. And
Mhm.
so for me, it's just reminding people that I have challenges. I'm joyful. You have challenges. You can be joyful too. It doesn't have to be either or. And that mindset, I've seen people develop into thinking more strategically in acceptance of that the fact that we're not all in a perfect space and you don't have to be. And another thing for me is that mindset of perfection. I think perfection is the enemy. I really do.
Mm,
Because so many things in life don't have to be perfect. They just don't. And we put such pressure on ourselves to perform at 100% at everything we do. And if we try to be perfect at everything, we won't enjoy life. We won't even, ironically, excel at anything, because when you're trying to be perfect at everything, you just don't have that bandwidth. So to be able to say, you know what, I'm a lousy cook, and I accept that. I really do. It's okay unless it's something you want to change. And to get to that point, to have that confidence within yourself, to know that it's okay not to be perfect. Now, obviously, if you're a brain surgeon, you kind of have to be perfect at your job. I mean, let's not get silly, but I'm
yeah.
talking about the daily interactions we have and the daily experiences in life. I mean, does it really matter that I am not a Pinterest kind of person and my arts and crafts don't look so good? Of course it doesn't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. Unless it's important to me, I can let that kind of expectation go. It's very
Mm,
empowering.
it is. That is amazing. So just really kind of sorting out what your priorities are and what's important to you.
Absolutely. And if I could, I think this would be a good time to mention this cool acronym that I developed, because I've been working very hard the last year on how to articulate this to people so they could understand it in a very easy way. And who doesn't love a good acronym, right? So
Absolutely.
it's all about caring for yourself, and CARE, and care. C. The C stands for that change piece. So I really feel that when we're looking at who we are in the totality of who we are as individuals and the joy that we have and the joy that we deserve and the joy that we want to have, we have to look at things that we want to change. So for me, I will say, what is the thing about my life? What are things in my life that I have to change in order for me to live the level of joy and the quality of life that I want for myself and for my family and for those around me? And it was going back to those fears. When when I was pregnant with my first child, David, who's now 12, my anxiety and fears and OCD tendencies came back. They resurfaced. And my therapist had told me not to be surprised if that happens, because when we go through challenges or new phases in life, sometimes those traits tend to surface and rear their ugly heads. So as soon as I recognized that those challenges were coming back, I was obsessively washing my hands. I was afraid of, germs. I was afraid of something terrible happening. I became very obsessed with the fears of bringing this child into the world and what could go wrong. I reached out for help because I knew I didn't want to live like that. And
Mm,
I didn't want to raise my child from a place of fear. I wanted to have a healthy marriage, a healthy relationship, and I wanted to have some joy in this phase of my life. So I got some help, was able to work through it and get through it okay. And, of course, I'm always going to be a fearful person. It's just my mindset. I'm very anxious. My goal is to fear less, not to be fearless. And I have the tools and the resources I need. But I also know that when I'm stressed and struggling with new challenges, it can resurface. And as you can
mm,
imagine, for somebody who's a germaphobe, COVID has been a nightmare, an
mhm.
absolute nightmare. And I needed help again because back in May, my parents came over for a socially distanced visit on our porch. I hadn't been going anywhere. I had literally just been going on walks around my neighborhood. That was it. My poor dad needed to use the restroom. I told him he couldn't. He left and I cried because I realized that I can't live like this. This is something I have to change. This falls into that change category. So, the things that fall into that change category are the things that you have to change in order, or at least improve, even if you
Mm,
can't completely fix it. It's the things that you have to get under control to live the life you want. So, another example of the change category was about 5 years ago, I was still carrying my 60 pounds of baby weight from
mm,
pregnancy. And I said, nope,
mm,
this is something I have to get help with. I have to figure out how to get this under control to live the life that I want. And I got the help with a nutritionist. That was my missing piece. I didn't have that piece under control. I didn't understand how the macros worked. And once I figured all of that out, got it under control and was able to live in a more healthy way. So it's all
mm,
about the change piece. What do you want to change in your life? Now, the converse to that is the A in the care model, which is accept. So this is the
mm,
things that, do I love this about me? No, no, but Is it keeping me from living the life that I want for myself and for my family? If it's something that needs to be changed, it goes into the change category. But if it's an A, it's an accept. And with that accept means there's no judgment, no guilt, no anxiety about it. So for me, ironically, it's about cooking. When I got married 20 years ago, I was never a great cook, but I thought I was okay. Well, apparently I'm not. And it just was something that I never really wanted to change because I didn't care about it that much. But at the end of the day, it was something that I had to finally, after years and years, say to myself, you know what? I'm okay with this. I'm okay with being able to cook 3 or 4 things and going out to dinner every other time, whatever, or at least making an effort. But it wasn't something that defined me and defined my happiness or joy. So, a quick example of that, I was invited to a cookie exchange, and the invitation actually said, no store bought cookies.
Mm.
Really?
All
All
right.
right. All right. So I tried. I said, I'm going to go to the Google and I'm going to figure out how to make an easy cookie recipe. Well, I couldn't find the recipe called for butterscotch pudding. Couldn't find it because it was the no bake.
Mm.
On
Okay.
sugar-free butterscotch pudding. And I thought, it'll be fine. Potato, potato. It wasn't fine. They wouldn't stick. The cookies were not sticking. And I actually had a bit of an anxiety about it. I said, well, I can't bring the cookie crumbles. What am I going to do? And it occurred to me, you know what, Lisa? What are you getting so upset about? I went to the store. I bought the nicest grocery cookies I could find, held my head up high, went to the party, told my story, and had a great time. I accept this about myself, and I had a great time. It occurred to me that I was worrying over nothing. Just be who you are, be confident in who you are, accept the things about yourself that you're okay with. Now,
Mm.
every once in a while, check in to see if those A's need to move up to C's and vice versa. But right now, the cooking, I'm good. I accept that about me still to this day.
Excellent. Cookie crumbles, looking ahead, you could make like apple crisp or something like
There you
that.
go. There
Yeah,
you
you
go. But
gotta
it was that pressure that I put on myself to be perfect. And it finally occurred to me, this is ridiculous. Come on. In the grand scheme of life, does it matter? Of course not.
Yeah.
And the perspective really helps.
Mm. And did anyone care that they were store-bought cookies?
Not at all. They got a good laugh, let me tell you. They said, well, we could have told you what was going to happen. It's like, well, I didn't know. So it
Mm.
was fine. It was more about the fun and connection anyway, of course. But we get ourselves so stressed over things that in the long run just don't matter. Sometimes good enough really is good enough.
Mm. True, true. Yes. And
So,
let's see, I think maybe you'll address that part in the R and the E.
well, the R is for reassess. Now, this is about knowing what brings you bursts of joy today. So we all know who we are, what brings us happiness, what makes us feel that joy. But the R challenges you to reconsider or reassess things that never used to bring you joy before, but they might now. So often we
Mm.
fall into the pitfall of just assuming we know exactly who we are. So we know what we like, we know what we don't like, we know what we enjoy doing. But so often those experiences and those decisions are made years ago. And we're not the same people we were a year ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. When you decided 20 years ago you didn't like camping, that's fair. What about current day you? Is there any possibility that maybe, just maybe, you might find joy in something that you never would have before? So, my example on that is being at a friend's birthday party about 10 years ago and going over to get a piece of the delicious birthday cake with the buttercream icing. Oh, yum. And there was a football game on. I don't even remember what teams were playing. And I was watching it and I seemed interested and noticed that the people around me were interested and getting excited. And wow, I mean, this was something that I would never have thought I would have been interested in. I was the kind of gal who went to the Super Bowl parties for the nachos, not for the game. Well, I gave it a shot. I went home the next weekend and watched another game just to see if I could figure it out and see if there was any interest there. And by golly, I am a huge football fan now. Who would have thought? Never had an interest, but it was just recognizing that something about that experience interested me. It gave me it piqued my curiosity. And I new enough to say, you know what, I'm going to give this a chance. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's not because I like the tackling and the violence. Of course, I don't want anybody to get hurt. But there's so much more to it than that. I mean, it's that connection with the fans. It's the connection and the energy on the field. It's the strategizing. It's the excitement that the underdog can win. I mean, it's the Kansas City Chiefs who are down and, trailing and trailing, and then Patrick Mahomes comes out in the fourth quarter and you're like, "Where did that come from?" It's mind-blowing. And it gives me a tremendous burst of joy. So I challenge your listeners to really think about that. Is there a possibility that something that never used to excite you might be something you could enjoy now, and be intentional about it?
Mm.
Try sushi. Never been a fan. Me neither. But a couple of months ago, I gave it a try. Still not a fan. That's okay. That's all right. But I'm open to the possibilities, and that's what the R step is all about.
I love that because you're just not you're allowing yourself to change, which we are do
Exactly.
anyway, but many people just don't realize that. They're so fixed.
Exactly.
So,
We
and
don't consider the possibility that we don't know ourselves as well as we might think.
mm, yes, I love just the change and just really finding out what gives you joy and things that you never even thought the possibility of having joy.
Exactly.
And fantastic.
Exactly. And that's where the E comes in. Now that you know what brings you those bursts of joy, E is the embrace. You have to do it.
Mm,
You can't just know that something makes you happy or makes you smile. You actually have to embrace it and find ways to build those things into your daily routine. And that's just something we actually have to be intentional about. People outside of ourselves, our families, our friends, every once in a while they'll provide bursts of joy for us. I mean, they'll surprise us with a text out of the blue or a phone call or a gift, but at the end of the day, we are responsible for creating our own bursts of joy. We really
mm.
are. And E is all about embracing that. So I am the biggest Barry Manilow fan you'll ever meet, Michelle. I love
All
him.
right.
I've seen him in concert a dozen times. He's touched my hand at a concert when I rushed the stage. It was amazing,
Wow.
amazing day. I love him, and I don't care who knows. I don't care how embarrassing it could be. But a couple years ago, I doubled down on my Barry Manilow love, and I joined the Barry Manilow fan club. So I am a fanalow.
All
So
right. Excellent.
for $10 a year, I get notifications of his concert schedules during non COVID times, of course. I get the opportunity to buy fun Barry Manilow swag. It makes me smile. And that's what E is all about, finding ways to incorporate those bursts of joy into your life and double down on them when you can. Join the Barry Manilow fan club. It's a silly thing, but gosh darn it, I love it. It
That
brings
is
me joy.
fantastic. Yes, I love it. I love just how each one of those components feeds into each other. Yeah.
Totally, right? It's all about just being you and loving you and accepting you because you are enough. And
Mm,
you offer so much to the world and to others and to your community and to all of humankind. And just appreciate who you are. Remember your awesomeness. Pretty
yeah.
simple stuff, but it's hard to do.
Oh, but there are steps, you know. What examples do you have? You know, you shared some of your own, but perhaps of people you've worked with or associated with of how people have implemented joy into their life and helped to build those healthy habits and really kind of embrace that joy.
Many of them have found community to be key. I mean, obviously, surround yourself with people who are supportive, who are encouraging, who have that element of positivity,
Mm,
because the people who aren't will suck the living daylights out of you. I mean, they're draining. I think we can all agree when you spend time with certain people, you're exhausted. Now,
mm,
let's be honest, there are times where you can't help that. But having a different mindset and expectation when you interact with those people, I think is key, because you know that that's where they are, you know that's where they're going to be, and to again accept that. Accepting is also about accepting what you cannot control, and when you interact with certain people, you know this is what they're going to bring, and being okay with that, and then controlling what you can. um, I actually work with someone who I was so proud of her. It was just a matter of talking it out and figuring out where we can pop in some bursts of joy. And we came up with the idea of finding ways to make sucky situations less sucky.
I
And
love
it
it.
was brilliant because there are things in life we have to do and nobody wants to do it. But how can you make that situation less sucky? And she was struggling because she was dreading having to move her daughter's stuff in storage into her new apartment. She was dreading it. And we came up with the solution of what about renting a cherry red Mustang convertible? Put that top down and throw those boxes in there and drive back and forth. Now, it's going to take a little longer and it was a little more money than renting a U-Haul, but she said it changed the day because it made it more of an enjoyable experience with the wind in her hair. She said it turned something that she was dreading into something that gave her a burst of joy. And I was just tickled with that example because that's what it's all about. Finding ways to bring that joy.
Absolutely. Wow, that is
Isn't that
amazing.
great?
And yeah, I love it. And yeah, it was a little more money. It may have been a little more inconvenient, a few extra trips or many extra trips.
Yeah,
But really just to have that thrill, and then, the two of you were able to bond and really focus on the joy. I love that.
absolutely. It's just a matter of brainstorming out of the box ideas. Things we have to do. But can we make them a little less sucky? I think so. I think
Mm.
so.
Mm. And as it seems like as you build joy in yourself, and then you're more apt to be open to change about things with your health or other surroundings or other situations. Would that be is that kind of the main focus there?
Absolutely. You have to be okay with who you are and accept where you are. If under that care model, if under A right now you feel your health is not where it needs to be, you feel like, if I could just get a little more active, or my stress eating under control, I would feel better. It's a matter of asking, okay, is that something that you want to change right now, or do you feel like, what, with everything else going on, trying to homeschool my kids, I'm in the middle of this stressful pandemic, I don't have time to put my energy and focus into that. That's okay. Right now, it can stay at the A level, and then keep asking every so often, is it time? Is it time to make a few of those changes, move that item into the next category? But there's no shame in keeping it an A right now. There's not, because the more pressure you put on yourself, the more paralyzed you'll be. It's
Mm.
just a matter of accepting and understanding where you are and being honest with that and with yourself.
Mm. Now, where does the motivation come to move the situation from the A to the C, to change?
To believe that you deserve better, because I
Okay.
really believe we all deserve to live joyful, happy, healthy lives. We don't get a whole lot of time on this earth, guys. And so, what do you need to do to be able to live the kind of life you want, that you deserve? And it's just a matter of believing that you are worth that, because we're all worth that.
I love that. I love how, and then, that's where the reassessment comes. Am I
Exactly.
ready to make the change? Well, maybe, maybe not, but really just, and then having the courage, maybe
Scary. It's
most.
very scary to move something into that C category. But again, to have the confidence that you know you can do it. You can be successful. There are resources out there, and not to be afraid to reach out to those resources. Nobody's expected to go through this journey alone. There are so many people out there, professionals, friends, community support. There are people who want to help you, and we help
Mm.
each other. And so nobody is expected to go on this journey alone. So when you decide you want to make a change, start looking into it. See what the game plan would be. Create that plan to make it one step at a time. Don't look 20 steps down the road, one step at a time. That's all we need to do. If we try to focus too far ahead, it's overwhelming for any challenge we're faced with. So it's just a matter of taking it one step at a time and trusting yourself that you can do this.
I love that. I just love the incremental. And as you do
Totally.
so, that joy is going to build.
Absolutely. You'll see that success. And even a small movement is still movement. It's still
Mm.
moving in the right direction, and celebrate that. It's empowering. When I was going through my therapy, um, my doctor took me through some exposure therapy, some exposure exercises. So basically, I was instructed to touch something that was not comfortable for me, whether it was really contaminated or in my mind was dirty, contaminated, and
Mhm.
then forcing myself to not do that response. I wasn't allowed to wash my hands. I wasn't using the sanitizer or a wet wipe. And the more you do it, the easier it gets because you're building on that momentum. You recognize that I am awesome. I can do this. And that nothing bad happened. So it's very similar to the other challenges we're faced with. But every movement was a movement in the right direction.
Mm. And it may be uncomfortable for a little
Oh,
bit.
so uncomfortable. So uncomfortable. And it's hard because all I wanted to do was just go to the bathroom and wash my hands. I'm like, look, I can make these uncomfortable feelings go away. But that wasn't what I wanted in the long run. That wasn't going to give me the quality of life that I wanted, that I deserved.
Mm. So now you're more reserved. You limit your hand washing to only certain times, or it's
Yes.
okay if you touch something and not go wash your hands.
Pre COVID, I was amazing. I mean, I had never been better with that. When COVID hit, um, obviously very stressful. So, obviously, when COVID hit, very difficult, very difficult. My doctor and I are working to realize that the risk of being safe out there, but still engaging in regular life is very difficult for me. I would rather have no risk. I would rather not go anywhere, do anything, which is fine if you don't have a family and kids. And so just being able to calculate the risk and how to be safe in a responsible way, but understanding that minimal risk and being okay with that. Very difficult.
Absolutely. But you're moving toward, yes, you'll accept some things, but
Yes,
then making sure you're putting some things in the change pile as well.
absolutely. Absolutely.
That is fantastic. I love the acronym. I love the
Great.
small steps that bring an, a big return on investment in terms of joy. That's so
Definitely.
fantastic. Wow. Well, Lisa, how can people get in contact with you?
Yeah. So thejoyseeker.com. Definitely go there. Lots of goodies. There's actually a freebie on there, 5 steps to finding more joy right now. So
Mm,
take a look at that. On the Instagram, at Lisa Dimino White, and on Facebook, at Lisa Dimino White.
okay, wonderful. And how do people get the book? Is that on your website as well?
There is a link to the book to get it on Amazon. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we will include all of those things in the show notes. And Lisa, it has been amazing and joyful and caring
Great.
to really hear about what gives us joy and how we can build and be healthier in many
Definitely.
different ways because of that.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. And I wish you a joyful day and your listeners as well.